What's up, y'all? Forgot to unmute myself for a second. Anyway, let's hang out and go over Midnight City today, shall we? This is a loop that I animated, I don't remember how long ago, a couple weeks, maybe? Here's the animation. I'm not going to play with audio because I played Borderline one time last stream, and the stream got copyright stricken, like, immediately, so... no audio for you, but if you want to listen to it with audio, check my Instagram. There's also a new loop that we posted there just yesterday with New Person, Same Old Mistakes by Tame Impala. Anyway, Midnight City. Little car jumps, explosions, foot stomps on a building, you know, the usual. Lots and lots of stuff going on in this one. Loops back to the beginning. Plenty to walk through here. So, just like last time, except this time I actually grabbed the screenshot for y'all. My process for this was initially just going to the song and listening to it over and over and over and over again, many, many times, so that I could just kind of like sit, enjoy the song, and then write down what it made me think of at the same time. I had a list of like, I don't even know. I usually end up having 11 scenes or so per loop, so I ended up trying to come up with close to like 15 to 20 ideas. And then once I edited the audio down, knew how many scenes I was going to make, I then crossed out each one as I put it down here in that list of 11. So, as you can see, we'll be... All right, we're going to hope that works this time. Let me know if it comes back in a sec and if that's good for y'all now. I think I was giving YouTube too much data again. That's my bad. But just let me know in the chat if that's better. Did it just like skip over a bunch of stuff? Because it was like pretty behind for me. Did y'all see me go through like this firework and this car? Or did that not even go through? Okay, fabulous. Yeah, I would think I was pushing too much data to YouTube, and it wasn't able to take it all. Anyway, this car is just a bunch of different shapes like this, all with different gradients, thanks to my nice gradient palette that I created ahead of time on this. Anyway, so all that together, I could have, if I wanted to in animation, like have these shapes split out so that I could have the actually I think I did. The tires are on one layer, so that the rest of the car can like bounce and have proper suspensions and proper suspension and things, as it's driving along these buildings and like jumping across. And then I just made duplicates of this building so that I can slide those by, keep the car in the same spot. You'll see in animation. Fireworks. I guess this is a firecracker, so you see the actual thing, but then fireworks would just be bigger versions of this up in the air. I don't know why I decided to punish myself this way, but for whatever reason, I decided I needed to make a shoe stepping on a building here. Now, I don't like working with perspective a whole lot. It's not my forte, to say the least. However, I did make this work. I grabbed a little photo of the bottom of a shoe, and then I knew I would just match cut to like putting this on a 3D layer, and then whapa. All right, peace, Leo. Have a good gym sesh. Have a good gym sesh. I put this on a 3D layer, and then I'll whack it down on top of this thing. Anyway, and then pop this thing down. The shoe is just made up of, it's similar to the car. I just looked at the shoe and said, ah, that's a rectangle. That's a rectangle. This is a rectangle. And then the only things that weren't rectangles were this guy, which is just a rounded rectangle, but don't tell anybody. And then you've got these half circles in here, or half ellipses really, for this. And then a bunch of little shoelace holes. Leo says, try not to be too rowdy with Will today. What's going on with Will? Why can't I be rowdy with Will? Anyway, this chrome car driving top down, you'd be so shocked and surprised. All just rectangles. Who would have thought? I looked at this car that I already made and then said, if that were top down, it would look like this. And so really the only main difference was that it had 2 headlights this time and 2 taillights. And then I have these road lines here to give context for the car driving down, even though like I'm not going to be having a camera follow it or anything. I could just slide these up through the screen and it makes it look as if there's a camera following it. I was like, okay, if I'm going to have this shot with stylized buildings, I can't just keep using the same building I've used all this time. So I'm going to make these 2 other ones. This one was kind of fun. Looks kind of like the Empire State Building a little bit. This looks like something out of Dubai. But I liked how, even though originally I was like, oh, I should probably make these lines match the width of the part of the building that they're on. But I thought they kind of looked like rings around the building if I kept them like slightly offset. So I just kept it that way. That was super easy. Faux 3D on any of these, again, is really simple to just grab one corner of this triangle and then move it around like this if I wanted to. So no big deal on that. This one was kind of a throwaway scene, to be honest. I thought it would be cool to have that classic like synthwave sun over this like grid ground, but I don't know. I felt like I got kind of lazy with this shot. But it's just a bunch of circles and lines. No big thing. This guy, this drink looks a lot better in After Effects, that's for sure. But essentially what we've got here is one rectangle with a gradient with some transparency in it. Oh, somebody say it's lagging again? No way. No way it's lagging again. That's crazy. Huh. I don't know why it would be doing that. Well, I'm just going to keep pushing and hope that the stream keeps up, I guess. Anyway, here we go. So this glass is just a rectangle here with some transparency. Then you've got another rectangle in here for the liquid inside of there. Then I added another small rectangle up here that goes the opposite direction of that gradient, so it looks like the rim of the glass. And then another one down here for like those, you know, those glasses that have the little like thick slab of glass down at the bottom. I thought that'd be kind of fun. So there's that guy. It's not as crazy as it seems. I kind of just picked like a couple gradients and dropped them on some rectangles. This one was fun. I thought it'd be like some kind of abstract radio. So I acted as if like this is a magnet up here. And then this dial can rotate around to like eventually go like snap into place to align to that magnet there. And then these guys in the background are just triangles with the gradient like smushed up here, so it's right at the edge, makes it look like this the guy's glowing without any glow. Easy peasy. These are all the same buildings that were over here, except I just removed the details and made them strokes instead with a black fill. And then I made one more fancy building with it's just 2 rectangles. Just to add a little bit more diversity. And then I layered them. Then we've got, instead of car taillights on in dark drives away, I just thought it'd be easier to have a little like street light thing at this point. So I just created like what the on version would look like with the light down here. And then I could apply that to these other 2 if I wanted to in After Effects. Anyway, rectangles. That's the main point for this one. It's all rectangles all the time. But if y'all have any other questions about the Illustrator stuff, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'm going to hop right into After Effects, shall we? Here we go. All right. There's a bunch of compound blur in there. Here we go. So, as you may have seen last stream, I keep most everything when I'm making a loop just by myself in one comp. If you see any pre-comps, it's because things got a little bit complicated for some things. For example, this firecracker, This first shot's only half a second. I don't know how I thought I was going to have this, like, fuse go down into this firecracker and be legible in that amount of time. It's really not, but, like, the firecracker on its own, you can kind of see there's the spark, frame to frame to frame. I have it start exploding even before it gets in there. But all this spark is that same set of circles that we saw at the beginning. And then inside of there are so many keyframes. Realistically, all I did here was just copy. I added keyframes onto one of these dots. It's some hold keyframes for color, some opacity flickering, and then scale going up and down like we did in the previous stream. As well as some... Actually, no, that's it, because the deep was on the whole layer. And then I just copy-pasted that on every other shape, but, like, slightly offset. So the circle after it would have started this sequence, like, one frame later, and one frame after that, one frame after that. And you can sort of see that, like, it goes kind of around the whole thing here. And then eventually I was like, there's not enough time to look through to, like, be able to see that story happen. So I kind of just said, fuck it, and started just adding some bigger explosions. So now you get that same thing, that same explosion happening here. Actually, you can see it really clearly here. But it's just, like, kind of offset. I did it the most obnoxious way possible. If I had to go back and edit this, I'd have to edit every single one of those circles. But I kind of knew it was going to work out, so I wasn't too worried about it. But that guy's kind of cool. Lots of people do things like this in Cavalry now, but I just haven't tried it. Let's see. What else? Then you've got this guy. I wanted the actual explosion. So, like, the blast, you know, you see, like, an explosion in slow-mo. It's got that nice fireball. So, effectively, all that is this rectangle with turbulent displace, fractal noise, and fastbox blur. And then it scales up. And fades off. It's a really jank way to do it, but it, like, kind of looks like an explosion. Kind of fun. Anyway, so I did that once. I was like, I'm not really liking how that's looking in the scene, so I just made another one in the scene as well. So you'd get two explosions. One at the beginning, one at the end. No big deal. And those are both exactly the same. Bang, bang, bang. Here we go. Now we've got our guy with the car, but I'm going to go ahead and read through some things in chat real quick. Mike Toon Studio says, your patience to build everything in Illustrator is great. I mainly focused on minimalistic looping videos for the past 15 months. I might transition to gradients and other complex compositions soon. Gradients are an amazing tool, you know? It's like, because I'm working in After Effects and don't want to have to deal with actual lighting in here or in a 3D program, gradients are like the best way to simulate lighting in like a way you have full control over every individual shape. You can do some kind of unexpected things. I love them. It's super fun. Also, at a base level, why have one color when many color do trick? You know what I'm saying? It's like, you can have so many different things going on. It just looks so, it makes for easy wow moments, I guess, is what I would say. 77XHX says, thanks for the stream. Do you know any motion design communities besides Revi? There's the After Effects Revi, After Effects subreddit. It's a little toxic, in my opinion, the actual subreddit itself, but there is a Discord that used to be part of the subreddit that's not anymore. I don't know. It's kind of confusing. There's that. What else? I mean, I can't really think of any others. If I think of any others in a sec, I'll let you know. But for some reason, only the After Effects subreddit one's coming to me right now. How long does it take to create videos in solo and in a team? For a loop like this, I could make a full one, like concepting all the way through to final export in 6 to 8 hours total. The team, it would usually be that like each animator gets 2 scenes. They probably take an hour and a half on those. And so it's like a little bit longer to have the full team do it. Probably, let's see, what does that add up to? 6 times 1.5. It's like closer to 10 hours if the full team does it. But you get some interesting stuff. with those extra 4 hours because you've got different perspectives of everybody on the team working on it. And it's still all pretty cohesive in the end because we all stick to a similar style for the loops. How did you teach fake 3D in After Effects, and why don't you teach any 3D programs? Well, I just like how fake 3D looks, to be honest. I think it makes for some fun surprises and things. 3D has always been a little like technically inefficient for me. I didn't have like a 3D capable computer for a really long time, and so it was just like such a grind to be able to try and use it. So I don't know. It's really just like a product of time. I just spent more time in After Effects than I did in 3D programs, and now that we've got people who can do 3D on the team, there's just a lot less incentive for me myself to learn 3D because we've got people who can already do it way better than I can. So that's why. Hugh says Midnight City, more like Midnight See Me Have Insomniac for days straight. Zucrit says Monday's challenge motion collabs. Oh, you're right. Those do have Discords. That's true. I'm not sure how active they are, but they do exist. That's fun. Rashab says, thanks, Austin, for doing these streams and walkthrough of loops. It really gives great insights to learn from. Of course, I'm happy to. It's also fun for me because we've made so many of these at this point. I kind of forget half the things that I've made. So it's nice going back through and be like, oh, I did that way? That's nice. Anyway, let's get through this scene real quick, and then I'll get back to chat. Here we go. So like I said, our car, all different shapes, okay? Because I wanted to be able to have like suspension and things when it hits the ground. So you've got all the shapes of the car attached to this body null for the whole car. You've got the wheels on a separate one that are attached to wheels, and then both wheels and body are attached to car controls. Then you've got these little sparks, which you may recognize from Borderline. I just love these sparks. They're so fun. When I was doing these, this was at a time, Borderline, Midnight City, Blinding Lights, and Heat Waves were like 4 loops that we made and posted within, I think I'd made all of the first 3 within like a couple days or something. I just went on a rampage. I don't know. And so I was taking some things from the other projects just to make it a little faster. Anyway, so you've got this null that all the car related stuff is attached to. Then you've got the 2 buildings that are attached to their own null. Okay, so the buildings slide over into frame and like a little bit up for everything, so you can have this nice like whoa as it jumps into the air. So our car, you can see here, car control, the anchor point. What do I have this do? Yeah. Okay. So I have an anchor point that I'm using instead of position because I don't need to scale the car at all. So I can kind of like double up on my position keyframes in the same layer. So this anchor point set here slides the car forward and then slides it back a little bit so you get the right clearing for the jump. And then the position is essentially just the Y. I could have split the position, but I don't know. I just don't animate that way because I'm a speed graph guy. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, essentially, a car just jumps up in the air, then hits the ground at the very end with an exponential decay to make the momentum for this shot coming down. And then there's just like a little bit of rotation when it gets into the air so that it feels a little bit more realistic. As realistic as this particular car jumping over these 2 buildings in that way can be anyway. It really feels like a toy car, but I was pretty pleased with it. The car itself, I went a little overkill. On any of these blue ones, I added Colorama so I can like swipe the gradients through there, and you can see that pretty clearly here. Which one has it on it? Let's see. This guy, for example. You can see that gradient is like sliding through there, and that's because Colorama has all these colors mapped to a black to white gradient, and then input phase is dragging them through. Anyway, there's the car from the side view. It's not as complicated as I would have thought to do that, but it was fun to work on. Then this one for the fireworks, I literally just copied the same spark I had from the first scene, but I added in this little glitter using CC ball action on a square. Easy peasy. That was it. Essentially, you just use the scatter property on here, and then change the spacing and ball size, and you can just get nice little particles that fly around. I added colorama to it as well, in order to get the same like nice colors floating through there. I have black in here as well, and the whole thing's set to linear dodge, so you get some of them kind of like blinking in and out of existence. Anyway, then you've got our shoe. This shot scared me the most out of all of them to do. I wrote it down on the in my ideation process, and I was like, oh damn, I really set myself up for a difficult thing this time. Anyway, essentially the way it works, you've got the same building that was in the other shots, it's just colored differently. So I swapped the pinks and blues, and you've got this little like blinky guy on the top to make it look a little bit different. And all that is just a circle with some deep glow on it that like changes on hold keyframes. Anyway, I also have a little sparkle in there. The shoe itself here is, I think all in a, yeah, it's all one shape layer. Nope, that's not true. There's the sole, like the base shape, and then all these like content layers here are just the lines within that. So I can have them do like a quick scale up, scale down on the stroke width as they pop in to like draw attention up there. Because what I found was if I started the scene with the sole already visible to the shoe, it looked really gross. Because like, let's be real, that's not the prettiest design ever. It doesn't necessarily match the design language super well. So I had to do some trickery to hide my ugly by blurring it really heavily and then only giving the attention once the movement was already happening. So you didn't have too much time to like look at the design too much. Anyway, so then I added little things here like a color overlay to everything down here of black that increases over time as the shoe gets closer. So it's like it's cutting out the light, making a shadow happen. And then it's just a 3D layer that this is all attached to. So you've just got rotation on the, what is it? Oh, sorry. It's on shoe down. You just got X rotation to just whomp there. And you'll see this is the last frame you get before it just, oh, it's a shoe now. But it works. It works all together. Bonk. Which I was very happy about because doing the morph between this to this would have been a pain in the ass. But instead, being able to just do the match cut, much, much easier. Then with the shoe, I didn't even really have to do a whole lot. I did colorama on these two, or well, on this guy down here, because it was such a big shape. I wanted to have it kind of ambiently animating. And then these guys, these laces, same animation I had on the lines within the sole itself. It just like quickly pulses the stroke width and the colors, and then just sits in place. But like that's it, minus some sparkles and stuff. And then it just slides over, and that's it. I try and keep it as simple as possible, even if it seems relatively complicated on some of these. Let's get to some of these chat questions. So sorry, y'all. Okay. Aman says, I'm inspired by your style of work, Austin. Thanks for this. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. 77 says, if you make videos so fast, why don't you post them more often? Social platforms don't like when you do that. Also, the audience doesn't like when you do that a whole lot because it becomes less special if I'm posting one of these like every day, you know, then it's expected and it's not as interesting. But it seems like posting one of these either every week or every other week is a decent cadence. Also, if I was just constantly posting them, I'd have to be making these things all the time because I'd run out so fast, you know? But this way lets me sort of like build up a stockpile to where I don't have to be spending like every single day of my life making loops. Because it's really intensive to like sit there and do a 6-hour session all in one go and then post it the next day and have to do another one. It's just like, it's a lot to do that. Aman says, how do you stick through the entire project? Don't you get tired of the same song? I mean, maybe. After a while, I don't have to have the audio turned on because I've already listened to it so many times and I've planned the whole thing out. Like once I have taken my shapes from Illustrator and dropped them into After Effects, it's pretty easy. Like I've already mapped out where everything's going to go and what the plan is. So I could do it all without audio if I wanted to. But I also pick songs that I like. So I just don't really get that annoyed with it. it eventually just kind of doesn't feel like music. It feels more like just sound effects or something. I don't know. Mike Toon says, you get used to listening to the same track. It's the same with voiceovers when we do explainer videos. You listen to Welcome To for like 10 times and you know the voiceover by heart. 10 years later, you still know the voiceover, which is crazy. It's true. For better or for worse, the loops with popular music have certainly changed how everyone on the team views those songs. Like, you'll have, because they're only like an 11-second bit of the song. But we'll all be like listening to one on the retreat or something, and then whenever the 11-second segment comes on that's from the loop, we're all like, oh, I can see it. I see the loop happening, you know? But it doesn't happen for the rest of the song. Hugh says, imagine learning After Effects when AI can make video of the rock eating actual rock. I know. Like, what are we doing? 77 says, it happens to you that you made a storyboard in Illustrator, and then in the process of animation, you realize that a certain scene will look bad, and already in the process of animation, you can redo this. Oh, I see. So, like, if I've made a board in Illustrator, and when I start to animate it, I realize that I don't like it, can I change it? Yes. And also, I'll just... It doesn't take me long to, like, design a new scene at all. So I'll change stuff on the fly if I need to. I'm not going to hold myself strictly to the board that no one else has seen and can hold me accountable to, unless it's like a client project, obviously. But even then, if we make something for a client project where the board eventually just is not going to work in animation, we'll talk to the client about it and figure out some solution. It's no huge thing. Mike Toon says, what is your approach to getting leads? Do you rely mostly on Instagram's reach and have clients DM or email you, or do you have a salesperson as well? I'm trying to understand how I can scale my studio. Socials. It's like the only way we've made it work, really. Socials, and then making our relationships with the clients we have, like, undeniably awesome. We're constantly surprising them with just, like, fun things they can use for their own socials or for, like, some event that they have coming up or whatever, without them even asking us to. And they love it. It's just, it also just feels awesome to be able to just kind of like gift out useful things to our clientele. But that client relationship part, I think, is the most important, because that also means we get lots of referrals and stuff. But beyond that, socials and just posting work that we like to get clients who want us to just do our thing for them is the easiest way for us to, well, maybe not the easiest way, but it's the clearest way, for us to get clients most consistently. But you're also kind of relying on the algorithms staying consistent and you being able to consistently create the same kind of content that your audience is looking for. And, you know, it's a whole separate game, but that's the way, I think. Cold email just isn't it. Most of the, like, OG tactics don't really work anymore, I think. Let's see. You don't know what to do except practice. For like getting leads? Is that what you mean? Let me get to some of these other ones after I go through another scene, because I can't be on here for too long. But I just want to make sure we get through this as well. Okay, the car driving top down. Like I already said, this is all just implied movement here. So this set of road lines that we've got is literally just like position flying up through the scene. You can see that here. It's just scrolling up through the scene. The car itself is all just attached to a null. It like comes down into the frame, then comes a little bit back up, and then goes all the way up again. But it's like realistically barely moving. Everything just feels like it's moving, and like I've got a camera tracking this long scene because I've got colorama on the road that's constantly making it look like the road itself is moving, as well as these lines, and then the implied like camera trying to catch up to the car by the car moving around. But I didn't use any actual cameras because I don't like using cameras in animation. Then we've got these buildings. It's pretty simple. I just took like each main shape, popped it up on screen with a little bit of position, did some like blurring for depth of field sake, and then if there's any like accents on them, like these lines or these little like, basically any of the light spots, I added sparkles or did like some cool glow or something on it. And then just like they go up, they come back down. That's it. Very, very simple. I didn't even do any micro animations on the windows or anything like that. Coming back down in here, this guy is effectively, there are two animations going on here. You've got stroke width pulses that are added to every single stroke that's in here, these lines and these guys, and then you've got this ball bouncing. And then on top of that, you've got a null that's like dragging everything over to imply some movement there. But that's it. It's a ball that bounces, and then it's just like some strokes doing a little pulse here, and appearing one after the other. Then we've got this glass. The glass was a little bit more complicated, mostly from like a blending mode standpoint. I wanted these lights in the background I wanted to make it look more like water by having these lights in the back being able to be distorted by this shape. So in order to do that, I've got the glass itself, which has liquid and then the bottom of the glass in here. And if I go back out, I've got the grid behind here. And then I had to keep like the glass shape itself, the like shine around it outside of those pre-comps. But anyway, I had to like bake in this dot grid inside of here. It was really kind of all over the place. But effectively, you've got dot grids that are masked into this turbulent displaced liquid. Okay, you can see that that's wiggling around over time. These have the same turbulent displace on them. And then I pre-comped all that so that I could then mask it back into here to get rid of those, like if I take this off, have no matte, you'll see that it's got the turbulent displace going outside of where I want it to go. So I just gave it another pre-comp deep in the layer stack to be able to cut it off there exactly how I wanted. And then bring it back out here to have the highlights of the glass. And then effectively all that's happening here, what really sells this is the colorama of the gradient on this this shine here. So it really makes it feel like it's reacting to the lighting in the scene. But all that is just this gradient mapped to a black and white gradient underneath, and then moving it through with input phase on this colorama. Pretty fun technique. And then I set it to screen to get rid of the black parts of this gradient. And then you've got this nice like shine changing across the whole thing. And then the dot grid in the back actually looks pretty sick on its own. But basically I took one row of the dots and then, oh, it's gonna really lag, isn't it? Anyway, each circle has the same set of keyframes on it. It does a color flash changing, it scales up, does a little pulse with some glow, and scales back down. And that's across the entire thing. So then whenever I duplicate that one pre-comp of that row up and down, you get this nice like offset grid that like looks like it's bending in 3D space and stuff. It's crazy. But anyway, that's what's happening behind there. Little sparkles on the edges, little colorama in the opposite direction on the bottom, just to make it look like it's kind of twisting and stuff. Then bring everything down. Now we've got our little like radio tuning dial scene thing. Much simpler than the glass. This is just shapes in a ring on one null, and then this little like pull down tab on another set of shapes. So what happens, the circle and the wire, I guess is what we'll call it. The circle and the ball, we'll call them. The circle rotates to look like the tuner is searching around, and then it like does some anticipation getting to the very bottom, and then snaps up to the top to match the position of that dot up there. When that happens, you get this nice color flash, one to cover up any ugliness of the transition, but also because it looks cool. And then you come back out of this, you got this nice sparkle, everything's turned to gradients, this thing's now backlit. It's just a nice little wow moment with some colorama rolling through this ring around here as well to help make it feel like metal. You'll be so shocked and surprised. This scene is literally the buildings we saw before, but with strokes on them and black fills and the same stroke pulse that I did across everything else, so that you get this nice, like, it looks like they're getting scanned over and built out with different colors. which looks really, really nice once you throw the glow on it, which I'll show you in a second. And now we're on to our last scene, and then I'll go through chat. This guy is our little stoplight. You'll see first light turns on, second light turns on, third light turns on, and then they're all sort of cycle to being on at the same time. And we follow that movement through to go back to the beginning. Ta-da. And all these are, it's just one shape layer I animated that's got 2 circles inside of it. One for this pink fill, one for this blue ring. But it's just 2 circles put over top of each other. And then I duplicated that twice and scaled it up a little bit to get this like different sizing on here. And offset them. Voila. That's all. The only other things that were added after that, deep glow, grain, you know, the usual effects, some compound blur, and some curves to like really pump up the contrast in a nice way. But like, oh, it makes it look so textural and nice, and I don't know. I was particularly happy with how this turned out. There's some good like poster moments in here. Anyway, bada bing, bada boom. If you want to learn how to do the compound blur technique, look at the Borderline stream from 2 days ago. That wasn't yesterday, right? 2 days. Whenever it was. The last stream before this one. But that's that. That's how I animated and designed this whole thing. And let's go through some chat that I missed. Rashab says, when you are working with the team in a project or loops, how do you maintain the consistency in terms of timing, spacing, motion, etc.? The biggest thing for the consistency is just having worked together for a while now. Everybody on the team has been here for at least a year. Some people coming up on 2 years. So we've just worked together for a while with the same group of people. That's a big thing. Timing and all of that stuff is done by, let's see, how would I show this? So ignore the layers in this. Actually, let me just delete this for now. Just delete the whole project. So before every project, what I do, let me move this over. Hold on, because I realize you won't be able to see this because of this stupid thing. Okay, so before we start animating or designing on any project, if we have the audio anyway, I'll make this set of markers to time out where each scene should be while we're concepting for the video. So everybody knows from this master file, they're going to copy that as their own duplicate so that they have the same timing for when scenes stop and start as everyone else. And so if Barbara knows that she has scenes 2 and 3, and Will has scene 4, they're not going to like have stuff that overlaps because they can already clearly see scenes 2 and 3 go from here to here and scene 4 goes from here to here. And everybody has that exact same timing set up, as long as we're smart about it. So having the master After Effects file that everybody can use for timing is, I think, a really important part for that process. And then for just like making sure the easing is right, that's just like going through feedback rounds. And again, like I said, us having worked together for a while and knowing what a review video feels like, you know? Maintaining the whole design and animation theme across various motion designers, doesn't it cause a change in flow of motion as everyone has their own way of adding motion? We've all reviewified everybody at this point. Everybody knows what a review video feels like on the team, which I'm very grateful for. Took a while to get there, but now we could post a bunch of loops and you probably wouldn't know who does which scene at this point. Rashab says, also in last stream you mentioned that you tweaked the original audio so that it's no longer the same and you don't get a copyright issue. Can you elaborate more on how you do that or show us? I can't show you because I would have to play the audio and will therefore get hit with copyright. Maybe I'll do it with like a stock track at some point. Effectively, for example, on Blinding Lights, there is the chorus where The Weeknd is singing and there's lyrics, but there's also the part that a lot of people know of the melody where it's like da, 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 right? Those two parts of the song happen at different times. And so like something I like to do is if there's two parts of a song that people really like and I can fit them together, usually they have the same BPM and whatever, I'll take like I'll lay them on top of each other essentially. So I'll have like the chorus portion where the singing is happening, and then a track underneath at a slightly lower volume with the melody underneath, so you get this like very full sounding track. And it's really just things like that. It's just cutting together the song in such a way that you get like the seamless loop and things like that. I don't really know a lot about music theory, so I don't have the terminology to explain it necessarily, but I can certainly feel it and like know when you can't tell where the track starts and stops. That's a good edit. That feels nice. But maybe I'll do that. I'll do a demo with a stock track at some point, because I realize that's very abstract in this context. Brian says, I'm not sure if this is a dumb question, but I'd like to ask, how do you envision the movement of the animations? Do you prefer separating or normal position keyframes? I like normal position keyframes, personally, but I'm also only using the speed graph, which is apparently unpopular. So, I don't use cameras either. I don't know. I think of it like, I like to animate as if the camera is already sitting there static and I'm putting on like a puppet show for it, you know? Like, I'll bring in all the props and the story myself and move it for the camera, rather than like setting up a scene and then moving the camera around in my scene. I feel like that makes for more dynamic stuff, rather than feeling more like something you'd expect to see out of like live action, you know? And then envisioning the movement for the animations is just a lot of time spent watching motion design work, and creating a bunch of my own, so that after a while, since I relate it to the audio so much, you start to hear like similar patterns in music or VO or whatever, and you can kind of be like, oh, that kind of sounds like two scenes I've made before. If I mix those together, like I'm sitting there with my eyes closed, moving my hands around, because that's what it's like, you know? Like when I'm sitting there listening to the audio, I've got this big library of design work in my head from both work that I've seen from other people that I like online and also my own stuff, and I'm able to just sit there and kind of be like, oh, I can kind of see like like you can conduct it, like act like a conductor. And if you really hone in on that experience and listen to like the movement that your hands and body is instinctively doing, you can kind of draw out the motion path for the whole video. I like to think of that as, if I watch a loop and I like blur my eyes out so I can't see the individual details, you can still like see generally the movement of the piece, you know? And so being able to have that from the beginning, where you're just kind of like feeling what the audio moves like to you, which I know sounds crazy, but like is totally a skill that you can develop over time by just listening to a bunch of audio in conjunction with visuals. But that's how we do it when we're concepting for anything. If we have audio, the whole team will sit there with our eyes closed and be like, okay, so like, and we look insane, but that's how we do it. I don't know. Barbara says, God, you're just so stinky. Well, you smell. So anyway, how's that for a change? 77 says, will there be any animation contests soon? Is all I will say on that. And Jackson says, have you ever considered shaving your head? I hear it's nice. I hear that you're actually only allowed to do that in Missouri, and if your name is Jackson. But I don't know where I heard that. It might be a rumor. I think actually getting a buzz cut here in Raleigh, North Carolina is illegal, unfortunately, and I don't want to go to jail. So VJ says, well, Amir says hi. Hello, Amir. Good to see you. Vijay says, hi, Austin. Recently, I saw your Unlocked Loop live stream. How do you find music for these loops? What keywords or genres do you search for? Do you customize the music or use small portions from clips? I customize it usually, as in like I will mix parts of the song that originally didn't go together in a way that works to get the like perfect loop for socials at like 10 seconds-ish. For the stock music, we use Artlist. Typically, I will do any combination of genres with electronic, funk, retro, let's see, hip hop, pop, or indie. Any of those mixed together usually has some good stuff. And like generally I'm trying to make loops with a BPM of like 100-ish, from like 90 to 120 BPM for the track. That feels good. Good Times HD says, when posting, do you focus on engagement or just posting work? Both. we have a good baseline understanding of like, if we make loops like this, we can guarantee like at least 100,000 views on Instagram essentially each time. And that's a combination of a bunch of different factors, but we post the work to get projects. Like, we like making these, don't get me wrong, but we've made so many of these. And so this is just like a way we can keep showing up and yes, practicing, but first and foremost, we're trying to like show our skill set to people, and get projects. So engagement is very important. But we're not necessarily trying to hit like 1 million views each time, you know? Because funny enough, we get the same number of leads from a post like this, whether we are getting like 2.5 million views on an Instagram reel or getting like 80,000. We'll still get the same number of people coming in. It's really interesting. Anyway, Mooch says, hey, Austin, I have multiple years of experience with After Effects in multiple genres. I want to dip a bit into your style of motion design. My biggest struggle is always the storyboard and coming up with scenes. What are your main sources of inspiration? Do you do certain things to get into the flow? Let me see which part I should answer first. Okay, main sources of inspiration. At this point, and I don't want this to sound self-serving, there are people who design and animate infinitely better than I do or can. And I really appreciate like 18 or 19-year-old motion designer. Absolutely insane. He's like a one-man ordinary folk. Will on our team can do all sorts of 3D shit that I would just never do that. And it's incredibly impressive. I don't know how he does it. But, to go back to the question a little bit earlier about like, do we post these for engagement or just posting work, whatever. I don't personally have a need to like try and do something ridiculously crazy and a different style every single time we post. So most of the time for these, I'm not going and finding inspiration. I'm really just like sitting with the song and thinking through scenes I've made for loops in the past or that we as a team have made in the past, and finding new ways to approach those, or like mixing together concepts in my head from my own stuff. And that's not because I think like my work's the best work or anything like that. It's just I can make the work so fast by doing that, and there's so much less pressure of like trying to compare to some other piece of work or something that is just like way better than the thing I want to make, you know, in different ways. So main source of inspiration, a lot of it's just my own stuff at this point, but that's because like for a loop, I know exactly what it should feel like, and I've made like over 60 of them at this point. So that's the most inspiration I'm going to have. It's not like there's somebody else out there who's made 60 of the same type of things, you know? But in order to be able to get there, to like just be able to sort of sort through my own things for these loops, I just watched as much motion design as possible for a really long time. I mean, high school and early college, I'd spend most days just like sitting on Vimeo and searching through like Motion Reel 2019 and watching all the motion reels I could find. And once I finished those, I watched Motion Reel 2020s and 2021s, etc., etc. And so I just had this like huge bank of just like little glimpses in my head of different scenes and things people have made in the past. So just building up that huge library and then eventually making a bunch of your own work to be able to reference, I think is a really easy way to be able to make work really, really fast and get those ideas out a lot faster. To get into the flow, the easiest thing for me now, for these anyway, since they're so reliant on the music, I don't bother with the design or animation to start with. I find the song I want to listen to. I don't even edit it down. I don't know which part of it I'm going to use yet, but I will sit in here in this room in the dark. I'll turn off all these lights and whatever, and I'll just have my eyes closed, listen to the song over and over and over again with a notebook in my hand, and then I just write out anything it makes me think of, for example. So like if I go back to my Illustrator here real quick, that's what this is the product of here. So all of this stuff, A City at Midnight, duh, is me writing that with like the music blasting in my ears, listening to the song probably like 30 times. It's like I just put myself in the music, you know, and you just start to sort of like develop and see the world that you can create within that. City at Midnight, ice smashing, stage lights, repulsing back waves from the center, paint splats, waveforms of buildings smashing on a drum, exploding neon lines, buildings, roads, And then all the things we already looked at. But that's the easiest way for me to get into the flow. I want to feel like I'm one with the song, for lack of a better term. Let's see. Sayla says, I always wanted to ask you if you can reveal your methods of adding last touches on most of your animations. Yes, sure. I actually went through in the Borderline walkthrough, but that's got more of the details in it. I'll just like briefly explain here. Effectively, I add a main deep glow, not like super strong, but just enough to get like some decent glows going on, usually like 0.2 exposure. That'll desaturate the colors a little bit though, so I add another adjustment layer with curves and curves to bring the black, the shadows back down, and then hue and saturation to bring the saturation back up a tiny bit. Then I add grain on top of that, and then if I want to go crazy with it, I'll add like another deep glow with like threshold and other stuff on it to do like specific glints on the brightest parts of the shot. In addition to that, compound blur, so like drawing white shapes, usually circles, fastbox blurring them in spots where I want blur to happen, adding an adjustment layer with compound blur, mapping it to those white circles, and you can like have these selective blurs on the screen. But that's pretty much it. That's the stack right there. Hayes says, hey Austin, how do you make such perfect gradients each time and they look so good? How do I learn that? Well, thank you, one. And two, I use them as lighting first and foremost, so I don't really think about them as just like an element on the screen just to like add some color. I use them as a way to show like where the light is coming from in a shot to add some depth and things like that. So in order to do that, I've looked at all sorts of work that has gradients that I liked. Also ones that had gradients I didn't like, and then I just really thought about like, why do I like these gradients versus these gradients? Where are people using them? All that sort of stuff to sort of like build out my own little rule set in my head of what gradients should be like. Anyway, Mike Toon says, music usually is edited in Audition if you use Creative Cloud. Yes, that's right. That's right. Some people on the team are editing audio and stuff in After Effects, and I think that's insane. Audition is great. I won't say who, though. Jackson says, doxed. How can you do this to me? Hey, man, you came for me, bro. You came at my locks. How could you do that? 77 says, why do you animate the ball in some videos and other videos the illustrations are suitable for the music? We've kind of gone back and forth on our philosophy of like what the loop should be. I personally enjoy the ones without the ball more at this point, or where the ball is just like, it makes sense to be there. Like this last one we posted for A New Person, Same Old Mistakes by Tame Impala. The ball is from the album cover, you know? So like it makes sense to be there as the hero because it tracks with the world of that album. But previously, I think we were kind of just using the ball as like a crutch for just like, it's an easy way to direct people's eyes, you know, and have them look where you want on the screen. But I've enjoyed challenging ourselves to have to illustrate a little bit more, even if it's with simple shapes recently. I think it's made for some nicer compositions and things. And also it helps differentiate the loops a lot more. I mean, if it's just all ball all the time, it gets hard to make new scenes, you know, after a certain amount of time. Like you can move a ball in so many different ways, but after making like 60 videos, it's a little hard to keep finding ways to move a ball. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I would say. We're more in the illustration territory and like using a ball if it makes sense now, but not like before it was like the ball has to be there. Like that was a rule that we had internally, but we're way more loose on that now. Hugh says, at Jackson, how is your hair so perfect? Yeah, Austin's isn't. Hey man. Hey Hugh. I see you, man. I see you, man. What's up, bro? Let me get this straight. It says, when you mean editing in Audition, is that before you bring it into the composition after trimming it to the required length? No, I will edit it in Audition first and then put it into After Effects to see like to then put the scene numbers in. I only figure out how many scenes I'm gonna have and like where they need to go once I've got that like final edit of the looping audio. And on that note, I think that's probably where I'll cut the stream for today. Next time I will do Blinding Lights by the weekend. And then we've got a bunch of other ones I can go through after that with plenty of different things. But thanks to y'all for hanging around today. I hope you learned something. If there's any other questions on this one, feel free to leave them in the comments. Send me DMs, all that good stuff. And otherwise,